I'm Jordan Hatfield. This is Faster Film Critic. Today on the show, we talk The Brutalist with Chase Fugel and special guest Blake Leszczynski. The Brutalist is a 2024 architectural drama directed by Brady Corbet, starring Adrian Brody, Felicity Jones, and Guy Pearce. This film won 3 Golden Globes for Best Motion Picture, Best Director, and Best Leading Actor. It was nominated for 10 Oscars, including Best Picture. Can it win? Will it win? Should it win? Get in! We're going cinephilin'. Blake, it's so great to have you back on the pod again.
Thank you so much for having me again. I'm very excited to talk about this film.
Let's just dive right in, man. What'd you think of The Brutalist?
I think in this day and age, for what they did, it just seems impossible. We're so used to films being, if they're long, they've got to be bombastic. They've got to be massive. They've got to be Marvel. Yeah. They've got to be Star Wars. It's got to be closing the loop on some sort of 10-film series, right? For a nearly 4-hour movie that's this quiet and this reflective and this artful, it just seems impossible, especially for how cheap they made it, how fast they made it, how tight it is. It seems impossible. And for that alone and the ambition, I'm blown away by this movie.
Many are saying this is the frontrunner to win the Oscar for Best Picture. Do you think it'll win?
Yeah, I really hope so. I think it deserves it. My other runner-up would be Conclave, but this one, amazing. I think this is the best of the decade so far.
The decade? Wow. What did you love so much about it?
There is so much that I loved about it. And like what Blake said, I'm surprised that we got a movie like this. Like even now, it feels very Bergman-esque. Just people and super close, intimate scenes. Everything is felt so much. It's not really you're watching these people, you're living with these people through this 3.5 hours. That's what I loved about it so much.
Do you think it's the movie of the year, Blake?
I think it's the piece of cinematic art of the year, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I wouldn't argue with that claim. That sounds fair.
Yeah, if it wins the Oscar, I will have no issue with it. There's like 4, 5 films that if they win, I'll have no issue with it. And this one, it feels like a big Oscar type film. I feel like, you don't see a lot of these types of films. There Will Be Blood. It reminds me of kind of There Will Be Blood is the last one that I could
see that.
That's like just a very in your face, like you said, Chase, just like you're embedded with these people rather than watching them, especially Toth. Yeah, I mean, if it wins the Oscar, there would be no issue with that because I do think it's the piece of art that's been nominated, the highest piece of art that's been nominated of the 10 films this year.
I also thought of There Will Be Blood. Several times in this film, I thought of There Will Be Blood. Walking into The Brutalist, I didn't know what it was about, and so I didn't really know what to expect, although I had heard tremendous things about it. I expected the film to be a little bit more Schindler's List-esque. I knew it wasn't about the Holocaust. I knew it was about immigrants, but I expected it to be impactful like Schindler's List. I expected it to really just punch me in the heart in that way. This film, from a cinematic perspective, as you both have been saying, is absolutely magnificent. I mean, it is a beautiful film, but the pathos in the film was missing for me.
Really?
Yeah, and I just kept wondering, why am I not feeling this film as much as I am other films? I mean, there were moments of emotional weight, but many scenes just felt emotionless to me.
That's crazy. I had almost the opposite experience.
And most people have. I know I'm on the outside looking in on this. I want you to tell me where I'm wrong.
It is an interesting take, right? Like the emotionless piece. And I think this is one of those movies that 100 different people could sit down and watch it, and 100 different people could interpret it differently. Interpret the feelings that they're getting differently, or the lack of feelings they're getting differently. For me, there's just layers here. There's layers upon layers upon layers, almost to the film's detriment, where you are unraveling these layers of what Brady Corbet and, to an extent, Adrian Brody and everybody who was involved in this film is trying to say. I definitely felt something throughout this film. I felt many things, and like I said, there's layers there. There's layers about power. There's layers about ambition and vision. There's layers about family. And immigration. the Holocaust is in the background through this whole film. Prison and being imprisoned is a central theme of this film without saying it out loud. But again, Jordan, you could sit there and Chase could sit there and my wife could sit there. My wife went and saw this movie with me, and we could sit and talk about this movie and the themes and the messages we got. And we're probably all going to have different answers to it.
I mean, you're absolutely right about that. There are many themes in this film, and I love the way that his real-life experience weaves its way into his art. I thought that was a very important theme of the film.
Yeah.
One of the many important themes of the film. That's something that I definitely picked up on and thought the movie was trying to highlight. I thought that was fascinating. I just never fell in love with any of the characters. I mean, at any one point, any of the characters could have died. And of course I would have been sad because that's a terrible thing, but I would have been like, okay, let's just keep going. Where's the story going? I was just never emotionally grabbed.
Really?
From a cinematic perspective, the film is absolutely spectacular. It is beautiful. It is technically impressive. I mean, on a $10 million budget, it's amazing what they were able to accomplish here. But of the many themes, I don't know that any of them really grabbed me.
Not even Laszlo?
Not even Laszlo. You brought up Conclave.
Yeah.
Conclave is a movie that I felt is similar to Brutalist in a lot of ways. Number one, the cinematography in Conclave is equally magnificent, in my opinion, if not more so. But there was a message there that hit so strong. I mean, that film ended, and I felt like I was emotionally moved to such a surprising degree.
Yeah.
I felt like this film has something to say, and what it is saying is important, and it is impactful. Brutalist ended, and I was like, okay, so the destination is more important than the journey? Like that's it?
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, we could jump right into messages because to me, the central problem I had with the film, which again I loved, is I don't think Courbet, and I know he had another writer, and I don't have that up right now. I don't think they understood exactly what message they were trying to put across because they put across dozens of messages, right? And where you talk about Conclave, there was one central thing around that whole film, and so you can walk away from that film and say, yeah, I fully understand what this story was trying to say.
Oh, yeah.
Again, you can sit and talk about Brutalist with 10 different people and get 10 different ideas about what this movie was trying to say.
And maybe that was it for me. Because there were multiple messages, I failed to latch on to any one of them, and I felt like the film failed to make one impactful statement. Maybe that was it. And again, guys, I'm on the outside of this one. Like most people who see this film are giving it nothing but praise. Absolutely nothing but praise. So I'm not saying I'm right here. That was just my experience. The credits rolled and I was like, the only thing that kept me into this movie, and I was in the movie for the entire 3 hour and 34 minute runtime, was the cinematography. Like there were moments of story that I found interesting, but as a whole, it was the art of the film that grabbed me, and it wasn't the story of the film that grabbed me.
It's interesting. The cinematography was definitely amazing. That's probably what pulled me into the film at first with that opening scene. It's really disorienting and claustrophobic, and there's the quick subtitles going on screen really fast. I was like, wow, this is really different. But I was captivated. I was on board for sure.
Yeah, no, the cinematography is incredible. And then I got to mention, this is Daniel Blumberg, the guy who did the scores, first major run at it. This guy's going to be busy. I thought
the score was great.
I thought the minimalist way he had set these scenes and then attacked with the just these overwhelming horns and strings when it was time. Like, he's going to be a busy guy. I can see him kind of going the same way as, now I can't remember the guy's name. The one who he did Oppenheimer. That was the last one he did.
Ludwig.
Yes, Ludwig. He came out and became the guy, right? It was Zimmer and then kind of the Ludwig Göransson guy. And I think Daniel Blumberg's going to be very busy. That score is incredible. I've been listening to it nonstop for like a month straight.
It's amazing. And even just scenes with normal dialogue, there's like sounds and music that carry it. There were parts of vintage cartoons, it sounded like, with percussion and random piano notes, but it worked so well.
Speaking of that, you're talking about the music. There's the scene in the jazz club.
Oh, yeah.
That scene, although not very long, was my favorite point of the whole movie.
Near the beginning, right?
No.
Kind of beginning going into the middle.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is like before he gets picked up by the car and goes out to the homestead, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep, I believe so. It's a long movie, and my timeline is a little fuzzy. But yes, that sounds right. There was that scene where everything kind of came together for me. Music, cinematography, the vibe of
the storytelling.
You know, tell me, what's the story? If you were to just give me a synopsis of this film, what is it?
Like in a nutshell?
Yeah, in a nutshell. Hey, I have never heard of The Brutalist, Chase. Tell me, what is The Brutalist about?
It's about a brilliant artist who's an immigrant. Just as he gets to America, he watches capitalism and consumerism clash with his own identity and art and just passion for creating.
I mean, I would agree. I think that's a very good synopsis.
Along with so much more. But that would be in a nutshell for me.
That doesn't feel like a 3 hour and 30-minute movie to me.
That's because there's so much more.
Exactly.
There's so much more. It's hard to put it into a nutshell.
I think you'd hit the nail on the head with what the movie is, right? Story, beginning to end, right? An artist, his ambitions and vision are outsized, and they come up against, America and what America is all about, and those things push against each other. And it's a long movie, and I felt like it should have been longer, honestly. I felt like there was an hour and a half still of this story to tell. And instead they pack it into 20 minutes at the end of the movie. And I think that was the most frustrating part. But the patience and the quiet way that Brady Corbet tells this story for the first 3 hours, I could have watched this for another hour and a half. And unfortunately, I feel like we got kind of robbed of the end of this story.
I'm with you for sure. I could have done another hour and a half. Easy.
And that's an interesting point. Like, maybe the message that I was looking for to reach through the screen and grab me was found in that hour and a half that was left.
I think it 100% was. This is how I explained it to my wife, is like, you're sitting down and you're having like the best 5-course meal you've ever had. Like, this is some of the best food I've ever eaten. Perfect in every way for the first 4 courses. And then, like, for some reason at the end, like, the chef comes out and instead of dessert, he just dumps a bunch of garbage on the table and tells you that this is dessert. This is how I'm wrapping this meal up. And when you finally kind of come to and go, what the hell was that? He turns around and tells you that the food was actually dog and you missed the whole point of the meal, and then runs out, right? Like, he says, that was dog meat and it was garbage and you missed the point, and then leaves. And you sit there and go, why? Why do you end this movie this way? Why do you spend 3 hours telling a story about a man, about art, about vision and ambition and power struggles and prison, and then have a character who is one of the least interesting characters in the whole story stand up and give a PowerPoint presentation about what the movie was to that character? Like, it made no sense whatsoever to end the movie that way. And then the 20 minutes before that, all of a sudden go into like a storytelling singularity from the time that he gets abused to the PowerPoint presentation goes so fast that I did not understand. It just felt like an early draft of the script that just stayed in for some reason.
I felt that too a little bit at the end. I was like, what? I couldn't figure out exactly what it was, but I wanted to, and I kept thinking about it because I love the movie so much, and I really trusted it. I was like, there is something here. What was it trying to say? And I could not stop thinking about this movie for days.
Oh,
and it
absolutely.
Finally clicked for me, that ending sequence. And I think it was, we watched this whole movie, and right at the start, we see this vision. He first goes in and does the library, and we see it. And the way that the movie shows it, it's amazing. It's like beyond words, that whole sequence. And then to see the library come to fruition, and you feel the vision that he has. And when it comes to the end of the movie, and you see the trends and the PowerPoint presentation, as you said, it's like they're trying to put words to this thing and make it sound so spectacular. You know, she's saying all this stuff that doesn't really even apply to the art itself. And he can't really speak for it. I mean, he looks very old by the end. And it's all filmed on this 80s analog, new wave, trendy. I don't even know what you'd call it, but it feels so wrong. It feels so gross. And I think it's supposed to feel that way.
I understood what Courbet was trying to do there. I think it's a dumb way to end such a great film. With Sophia saying it's not the journey, it's the destination, and saying that, you know, Laszlo Toth would say that to her all the time. It's like, no, Laszlo Toth would not say that. Like, this is, but I think that's my problem with it, is Courbet did such a great job for 3 hours of being subtle but really in your face about these themes, and then he decides to throw it all away with this kind of reverse Jedi mind trick of like, here's what my movie is because here's what my movie's not. And it's like, okay, like, just tell the story. We know you're brilliant. We just saw your brilliance. Just let it be instead of trying to show how brilliant you are.
How did you feel about it, Jordan?
About the ending?
Yeah.
I thought the ending was quite weak. You know, you both said that you left the theater and thought about this movie for days. Man, I forgot about this movie 30 minutes after getting into my car.
Whoa.
I just, emotionally, I never connected to anything. I was watching the film for the beautiful cinematography, for the art on screen, but the story, the characters never grabbed me, and that is such an important part of filmmaking, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, everything has to revolve around the story. The movie can only be as good as the strength of its story, and I hear you saying the story is magnificent. And I believe you. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that wasn't my experience. I just was constantly asking myself, what is this film trying to communicate to me? What is the message here? Yeah. Where can I latch on and really sink my emotions into? And that never came. And so when the movie ended, I can greatly appreciate the artwork that went into this film, but I forgot about it 30 minutes later. You know, I did want to say something. You were talking about the bookcase. You guys are going to make fun of me for this, and that's fine.
The library?
The library, I mean. Yeah. Let me start here. I am not an interior designer, and I do not have an eye for architecture.
Okay, I like this clarification.
I have zero ability to point to something architecturally or interior design and say that is good or that is bad. Okay?
Oh, no.
Let me start there. That's important. An important admission. But they bring in this architect, this amazing, famous architect, and he gets to work on this library. And when he finished it, I was like, what? Like, he put a couple doors on the bookshelf. Like, what is it about this? I expected something grandiose.
You related more to Guy Pearce's character than Laszlo's.
Maybe. That must have been it. Maybe that's my problem.
That was the disconnect for the whole movie.
Maybe that's my problem. But they show the library, and I was like, this is super, super simple. I expected something a little bit more impressive. That's exactly how I felt about the movie.
Well, I mean, it is brutalism.
Yeah, I walked into it expecting something bigger and more impressive from a story standpoint, and I got a very simple library, and I think that was exaggerated by its runtime. I think if this movie was, 2 hours and 2 hours and 15 minutes, I might feel differently, but because I sat through it for 3 hours and 30 minutes, it emphasized the simplicity of this library.
I think there's a scene in the coffee shop when Van Buren, I think is his name, he has gone and found Laszlo. He's kind of working menial jobs, right? This is after the library blow up. And they're sitting at the diner, and he gives him the articles about his other work. And Laszlo obviously just wants to go because he's busy. He has no preconception of, Van Buren wants to bring him out and hire him and all this other stuff. And he says, I'm really sorry, I've got to go. I don't want to be rude. He says this, though, and I think this is, again, Courbet trying to be very smart and talk directly to us. But I think this is the central message from the director to everybody watching this film. He goes, this is Laszlo Toth talking to Guy Pearce's Van Buren. He goes, you were unprepared for what you saw. That is understandable. I'm glad you've come to appreciate it. And I think that's Courbet saying, hey, you're going to think about this movie. And you didn't, Jordan, which is fine. But I think a lot of people did walk out of it and think about this movie and come to appreciate it more as they think about it. And I think it would be worth your time, Jordan, And I don't look. This is not my favorite movie of the year. It's probably not even one of my 20 favorite movies of the year. But I have come to appreciate it more after second watch and thinking about it. I love this movie. I hate this movie at the same time. It's incredibly frustrating to me. Like, it's an incredibly frustrating piece of art. But I think that's like the best kind of art.
Good art has a way of doing that. It requires you to come back to it and revisit and think about it and sleep on it. And I promise you guys I'll get back and watch this movie. I think it deserves that. And like I've said so many times, I'm on the outside looking in on this film. Most people who see it absolutely love it. I mean, it is the front runner to win the Oscar for Best Picture for a reason.
Yeah. And that coffee shop scene you were talking about, that little piece of dialogue right there, that little interaction as they both get up to leave was amazing. And I took note of that part too. And even right after it said, Van Buren was talking to Laszlo and he said, I'd like you to come see it in the daylight. And he said, I've already seen it. And he said, I would like you to come and enjoy it. Because seeing it and enjoying it are two different things completely.
Well, I did see it. I can't say I enjoyed it as much as you. I did see it, and maybe I'll enjoy it more on a second viewing. But I also saw Conclave. And I'll tell you, I think Conclave is the superior film. I absolutely loved Conclave. I thought the cinematography was every bit as incredible. I thought the story was impactful. I thought the characters were interesting and engaging. I thought its message was heartfelt and important. I think that Conclave is the better Best Picture winner, and I hope that it wins Oscar Best Picture 2024. Let's go!
I felt like The Brutalist is a bigger swing than Conclave was, but I would agree with you. Overall, putting the movies next to each other, I would agree that Conclave's a more complete movie, but I give all the flowers for the swing that Courbet and crew did and being able to nearly pull off knocking it out of the park is very impressive. But I agree. I think Conclave's just a more well put together film for sure.
A lot more clear for sure. What did you guys think of Adrian Brody's performance?
I thought he was absolutely incredible. His performance was absolutely incredible. If he won Best Actor, I would not be surprised, and I would stand up and applaud. I love Adrian Brody and almost everything he does. He is absolutely fantastic in this film.
I'm glad we can agree on that.
Yeah, this was his best performance, and Pianist included. And I like Pianist a lot more than this film. He absolutely disappeared in this role. And from moment one, I was hooked on his performance and Guy Pearce's. But Adrian Brody's performance blew me away in this.
Speaking of Guy Pearce, I absolutely love Guy Pearce. I wish that he was in more movies.
Me too.
I think he is an absolutely fantastic actor.
He's very selective.
I really, really, really like Guy Pearce.
Even in Guy Pearce's heyday, he was hardly in anything. It's just wild.
I know, right? That's my point. Like, such a talented actor, and he seems so underused.
Yeah, no, he was fantastic in this. What a foil, and kind of really against type for him, right? Like, it's very different than what he usually plays. But I guess there's no real type for Guy Pearce because the two movies I think of right away are Memento and L.A. Confidential, and neither of those are similar characters. So
Count of Monte Cristo jumps out at me too.
Oh yeah. But this is a surprising role for me, and for him to be so likable and unlikable at the same time was really well done.
Well, let's go ahead and rate it. What do you guys think?
You know, I got to give it 5 stars. I loved this movie. I thought it was amazing. Like I said at the beginning, I think it's the best film of the decade so far, and really like its message. I think what makes it so powerful is because it's beyond words. It's beyond a PowerPoint presentation. You just need to feel it. I thought it was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I have this at 4 stars. I think it is one of the most well put together pieces of art. Just beautiful to look at. Amazing for 180 minutes and just totally drops the ball at the end, and it's incredibly frustrating. Again, I hate and love this movie so much. But yeah, it's 4 stars for me.
I do appreciate this film. It was incredibly artful. But to me, the breadth was bloated, the message was thin, and the pathos was absent. I gotta come in at 3 stars. I'll check it out again, and maybe I'll love it more in a second viewing. If you loved it or hated it, or fell asleep or left at intermission, let us know. We would love to hear what you thought of The Brutalist.
The Brutalist is a poetic and unflinching tale of an immigrant's grand and often destructive ambitions colliding with the ever-crumbling facade of the American dream. If you're captivated by such stories, you owe it to yourself to watch 2020's Minari. Written and directed by Lee Isaac Chung, this semi-autobiographical masterpiece follows a Korean family's struggles in rural Arkansas during the 1980s. The film is at once intimate and sweeping, reflective and epic. Both The Brutalist and Minari feature stunning cinematography, beautiful scores, and some of the finest acting of the decade. Minari is one of my favorite films of all time and an absolute must-see.
Thank you for listening to Faster Film Critic, and please join us next episode when we talk Companion, directed by Drew Hancock. This psychological thriller looks wild. You can also follow us on Letterboxd, Cinetrack, and Instagram. Email us at fasterfilmcritic@gmail.com. Hit us up with any questions, comments, feedback, or review requests, and don't forget to share this episode with your movie-loving friends.